Dax Media. Thank you for jumping on to this show. And I do this every week at this time. You want to stay focused because it's all about giving back to you, helping you in some way to grow and nurture your business with the tools, strategies, and tips that I bring to this show. And so today, really fired up because we're talking about outreach. This is lead generation campaigns, building your network, something we all need to be doing as you're growing a business or you're professional, whatever the case is. We have to have this going on, and there's two sides of it that need to work together to make it smooth. And I want to talk about those in this episode. Let's jump into it. Okay, let me share my screen. You can enlarge that screen wherever you're watching this. I'm streaming everywhere: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So wherever you're seeing this, thanks for being here. And um, so let's talk about this. This is, lead generation, outreach, building your network. I always ask people, do you have an identifiable and repeatable process to reach out, to connect with people, get in conversations, and so forth? And most don't. It's sort of bubblegum and toothpicks with a lot of people. And so I just really want to stress this is a main component of building and nurturing any business is lead generation. And I look at it differently than a lot of people. I want to build up a big network of targeted prospects, build up a very, very big fat network, make a lot of noise, build a pipeline, do it in a very professional way, not pitchy, and reach out to people that I know I want to work with. So the you've got to figure that out and get that process going. When we talk about reaching out and building a network, there are two broad areas involved here. There's the front end and the back end. Now, there's a lot of nuance with lead generation campaigns, but I'm just going to focus on a piece of it here. The front end of lead generation is where you're putting together your target niche. You're putting together your messaging of what you want to say when you're reaching out to people. And you then are reaching out. And maybe this is campaigns on LinkedIn, maybe this is email campaign, wherever this is happening, uh, you you can measure this, the front end of it. And the metrics on the front end of any outreach campaign are never a mystery, whether it's email, direct messages, obviously phone calls. You can measure the front end of it, and you can see what's happening. And there is no gray area. Either it's working or not. You can see your email open rates. You can see, are people connecting with you? Let's say you have a connection campaign, excuse me, going on LinkedIn. Are people connecting? Are they responding? You can measure this. These are the metrics of the campaign. And I want to make sure to see here, got the next slide. Uh, you know, you are able to see all that and understand, is it working or not? And it really is part of your sales funnel, which is right here. And so your sales funnel is where you have the front end of it is the awareness campaign, right? So this is your basic sales funnel: awareness, interest, decision, action. When you're reaching out on the front end, it's making people aware of who you are and tracking that. And that's what you want to measure to make sure that's going correct. And where that can fall apart on the front end of reaching out is, first of all, any good outreach campaign starts with a targeted list, right? Your prospect list. And so if you have a lousy list, obviously no matter how great the metrics are, who cares, because your list is crappy and you're getting unqualified people coming into your touch point system there. So You got to really work hard to understand who do you want to work with? Who are these people? And then use the right filters. Sales Navigator is a great filter, for example. There are plenty of ways to filter for people through Sales Navigator, but even off of Sales Navigator. Maybe you're buying lists or whatever you're doing, or finding lists somehow. You have a resource. The point is, get that list airtight. Look at that list, become familiar with that list, get comfortable with the list of who you're reaching out to. And then on that front end, the messaging to that list is very important because you want to understand their challenges, the opportunities, the language they speak. You know your audience. And so your messaging when you're reaching out, especially if you're automating this, which is always a good idea. There's great tools to take the labor off of your plate and getting messages going out, but it's got to be tailored to your group and really have a conversation with them. What do they care about? What are they passionate about? And for example, if you're reaching out to, let's say, uh, people who own rental income properties, we know what the issues are for anybody who owns rental income property. It's an investment, so they care about taxation, they care about tenant liability, they care about guarding themselves from lawsuits from tenants, they care about cash flow with their property, 1031 exchanges, all the things that if you own investment property, these are things that you care about. And so if that's your audience, and it is an audience for me for one of my businesses I'm building out, if that's your audience, speak to them, put content together, message them that that touches on those important matters for investment property owners. So you get it, you have your list, then you've got the messaging to generate awareness and interest in you. So that can be measured. That's the front end. And if the list is cruddy, the messaging is lousy, then the stats on that outreach aren't going to be working very well. And so you've got to make that airtight. Now, here's the back end process, which is harder to measure because you're talking to human beings now, and you're having conversations, and it's not automated. You're not scaling these things. This is where it's human to human interaction, which has obviously got to happen at some point. But the back end's got to be just as tight as the front end. And I see with outreach campaigns a lot of times the front end can get going, it's working fine, but the back end is where it falls apart because people, whether you're a business coach, a Vistage chair, work with a lot of Vistage chairs, or whoever you are, and you're reaching out, if you don't have a tight back end process, it's not going to work. And so let me talk about this process a bit. So first of all, number one there is you've made them aware of who you are. Okay. So now you've reached out, you've connected with them. So let's say on LinkedIn, you've made a connection. I equate that to real life. You shook their hand, right? You don't know anything about them. You shook their hand. Now you got to have a discussion. Got to be curious and get into it. How do you do that? So, like real life, if you went into a room and shook somebody's hand, you'd have a further conversation. You want to talk and learn and so forth. Same thing on platforms like LinkedIn. You shook their hand, they connected with you. Now, what are you going to do? Number two here gets into the agenda. And I just go insane with the back end agenda of an outreach campaign. Get the front end down, now the back end. And this is where I get into a lot of counseling with people I'm working with on, okay, what's your back end? Do you have this airtight? Tell it to me. Let's look at every single piece along the way. First piece is they're aware. Now you got to get them on a Zoom. Number two, and how do you do that? Not a phone call, a Zoom. Anytime you can get video to video, person to person, you want to do it. It's more powerful, helps with conversions everywhere. So here's the agenda when you reach out to try to get them on a Zoom call. Is number one is you thank them. You thank them for connecting with you, thank them for being a part of your network. Thank you. Lead with a thank you. Then you've got to humanize that interaction, meaning that you haven't interacted with them other than a connection request on LinkedIn. Now they're connected. Now humanize it. So go to their profile, actually spend time looking at their profile. People put a lot of stuff on their profile today that they care very much about. What do they have on their profile? What are they passionate about? Are they involved in a foundation? Maybe they started a foundation, or some people put information about their family on there. I mean, more and more people are really making that their landing site for their bio page, and so you can find things on there that people really care and are passionate about. And so you're after you thank them in your message, then you humanize that message, saying, "Hey, I saw your profile, checked it out, looks great. I love the foundation that you're working on. Women in leadership. I have 3 girls I'm raising myself, and love that. Would love to hear more about that." Boom, done. You've humanized it. You've told them in just a few seconds. You've actually looked at their profile. You spotted something they care about. You commented on it. You're curious about it. Huge, huge win for the agenda for that. Now you want to go to relevance. Why are you reaching out to them? And so this is where you make the relevance on the business side of things. Hey, I see that you own investment property, and I have some incredible collaboration going on with other investment property owners, and I'd love to learn more about what you're doing in that space. And I can share what I'm doing. I know it would be a meaningful conversation for both of us, and I like going deeper with my first level connections. Relevance. So now they understand, okay, he's working with property owners. I get it. And I can even expand on that a little bit and tell them what I'm doing. But the point is make a relevant statement about why you're reaching out. And now you go into the call to action or the CTA. What is your call to action? Zoom. Got to get them on a Zoom. So now you just end it with, thanks again. Would love to jump on a Zoom with you. I'll include my calendar link. Let's grab a time. Look forward to it. Sign off. So now I want to talk about how to do that on LinkedIn, because we all have the ability to send a video message on the LinkedIn mobile app. So when somebody connects with you on LinkedIn for the first time and you want to chat with them, send them a video. Go to your mobile app, click message, click the plus sign. There's a drop down menu. You'll see video. Send it. That video shows up in their messaging app with their face, a play button. It's a very powerful tool when used properly. And this is the agenda I run through on that video. But if you're typing a message, run through this agenda also. Keep it tight. And in that video on the LinkedIn messaging app, they give you 2 minutes to leave a message. I usually take about 45 seconds to a minute. It doesn't take long. I crank those out, boom, done, move on. Okay, now you get to step. So they book a Zoom. You got a Zoom going. This is where it can drop off too. You don't want to just have fluffy conversations. What are you talking about on your Zoom call? Have an agenda. And the agenda is for on the Zoom call. Build rapport. So now you're talking to them. Have some rapport building there, starting off right away. If you can inject some humor into it, great. If you're not a humorous person, fine too, but build rapport there. Smile and get to know them. Comment on something. Maybe they have something interesting in their background. I remember talking to a guy, and he had a bunch of rock and roll posters in his background. I made a comment, said, "Hey, there's a band I loved on there," and it's just rapport building there. I noticed it. I was curious. It was a passion of his. He started talking about a few of these bands. So build rapport, then start asking questions, right? Be curious. Don't go right into yourself. Ask questions, because you reached out to them. You're connecting for the first time. So just start probing and be genuinely curious about them. Like, what? Tell me about ask them. Hey, did you grow up in that area? Yeah, you have family there. People love talking about their families. And then get into business. And how'd you get into business? And look at yourself as a talk show host. I almost put myself in like, okay, I'm Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon or something. They're really good at creating conversation, having dialogue. be that person. And when you start asking the right questions, especially on the business side, then you can start to glean from their answers where you sync up with them as far as what you do in your business and where there might be some opportunity to take this discussion further. And so you ask the right questions, uh, and that can be very key. Then you want to get into about you, of course, saying, "Great, hey, awesome, love hearing about you. Let me tell you what I've been doing," you know, and then you get into yourself and what you're doing, and then you want to talk about what is the next step? What is the next step on your Zoom? You can't just say, "Oh, great, nice talking to you," and then move on. You got to have a call to action to continue forward. Depending on your outreach and what you're trying to accomplish, could be a demo that you do as a follow-up. Hey, let me show you. So, maybe you came up in conversation. If you're strategic and you want to get to that point, you can bring it up. You can say, hey, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's set up a 45-minute Zoom. I'll share my screen and show you. You'll love it based on what I know about your business now. I think, hey, you might benefit from this. I know you will. That is a great conversion mechanism to get them on a follow-up where you're actually sharing the screen, doing a bit of a demo, and then learning more about their business and so forth. And um, maybe you have a podcast show and you want to use that tool to further the discussion. You invite them, say, hey, you'd be a great guest in my leadership podcast show. Let's do that. I can learn more about you. We'll get that out. We'll get that out to my network. You can have the link to get it out to your network. That can be a strategic follow up, if you're in tune to that. So the point is, have a follow up mechanism once you get on that Zoom call. So, in summation here, front end, back end of outreach. Make sure you have an outreach process going that's identifiable. You can repeat it, and then follow these tools and tips and strategies here, and it'll work for you. Now, if you ever have any questions on anything I'm doing here, love giving back. And around this video, wherever you're watching it, is a way to get with me and love to learn more about your business. I just love giving back, and I can tell you what I'm doing. I'm a great guy to know. 3 podcast shows, a radio show broadcast from Los Angeles. Through my businesses, we're doing 40 workshops a year. I write a huge blog that goes out to 120,000 people, and would love to have you in my network to help you learn more about you as well. So let's stay connected. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time.